Remnant 2's first of 3 DLCs is here, and it brings with it more story beats, items, enemies, rings, and even a new class, focusing on status effects and damage over time. The full game only released back in July, making this a pretty quick release from Gunfire Games, considering how long other games can take for expansions to roll out. While there is a lot to love in this new DLC, there's also a lot not to love.
Oh my god, that's gonna be the boss, isn't it?
Yep. Base
Come
enemy with
on,
armor
bro. It's just another base enemy.
With all that being said, let's dive into everything new that's offered when you purchase The Awakened King. To access the DLC, players just have to head to their hub world, Ward 13, and select Reroll Adventure. You'll then notice a new world in the game alongside the original 3. Select the new world and you'll also notice it's described as a one-shot level with less randomness compared to the base game. And I personally really enjoy this, as it gives the developers a chance to design a more deliberate experience with enemies and NPCs being put in the most interesting places possible, as opposed to just, randomly assembling a bunch of assets. When you first load into the new world, you'll likely be immediately taken aback by the sight of a massive castle in the distance. Elden Ring vibes are in full force here, as you just know you will be slowly making your way towards this castle as you progress further. When you progress, you'll quickly find yourself in a very similar looking sewers area, and then you'll realize this isn't a completely new level. This is half new and half reused content from the Lossome world of the base game. You find a really interesting NPC here with a neat story, plenty of quest items that interact with them, and even some that you can buy, but I'm not going to really spoil that too much here. So you move on from the sewers and you find yourself in a dock/harbor area that feels pretty newish, and it still fits with the already existing Lossome world, but you get these fun boats at the very bottom level that you can jump over, providing a little platforming challenge. Since this entire DLC is basically a continuation of the Lossome world from the base game, it makes sense why it's not 100% new map content, but this specific area still does a good job at feeling new-ish. Upon entering that not-so-new sewers area near the start of the game, you'll encounter right off the bat these horrible, awful, despicable frog-like blob enemies that just come in either green or purple, and these are easily one of my most disliked enemy in the entire game because they just literally do everything. They're fast, they're strong, they have AoE produced damage that one-shots you, and to top it all off, they're needlessly tanky. Like, why don't they just pop? Look at them, they're like bubbles. They should just... For being a relatively small enemy that the game throws at you hundreds of times, I would have enjoyed them being a little squishier to warrant such insane speed, damage, and numbers. Counter to that, another enemy you'll encounter is a witch with a really cool shield they hide behind until they shoot it forward as an AoE attack that lights you on fire if it hits you, making things like your second chance ring or abilities really unable to save you. I'm pretty sure using elemental damage destroys the shield, which gives you an opportunity to dish out a bunch of damage. This enemy has less health and speed, but the barrier can be deadly and requires some thought to take down, so the witch, to me, is an example of a good enemy, whereas the frog blob fuck is an example of a horrible enemy. But again, that's just my take. Finally, you'll encounter a dual-wielding spear fighter, which feels very much exactly like what you'd expect him to do. He pokes you with up-close combos you have to dodge through and keep your distance and maybe slow him down while you unload 500 bullets into his exposed belly. This enemy isn't the worst or the best, really just a middle-of-the-road enemy that probably could have used something to make him more interesting overall. It's a dude with a melee weapon that wants to poke you. Truly one of the most video game enemies of all time. I personally cannot stand it when games take an enemy you've already fought maybe dozens of times before at this point, scale them up in size, maybe like 30%, 10x their fucking health bar, and just call it a boss. Destiny 1 had the gall to make a regular fucking robot you've killed thousands of times the final boss of the entire game, and nothing makes me want to review bomb a game more than that. Boss battles in video games are like action sequences in a Transformers movie. They make or break the entire experience. They're what the entire fucking thing is all about. The setup before the boss and the payoff after the boss all depends on the quality of the boss. So imagine my fucking surprise when the first boss isn't actually a boss, but is instead a pile of sticks that spawns waves of frog blobs. I'm sorry, but this is a 0 out of 10 boss. This is nothing. It reminds me of Remnant 1 when nearly all the bosses relied on using basic mobs and ad spawns in place of extra movesets, and it doesn't get much better. In the base game, the weakest boss you could fight out of the entire fucking experience was easily the regular woman on a pedestal, not even scaled up, who just throws fire bombs at you while more regular enemies fill the arena. You will watch this regular, basic ass bitch of a boss swing their weapon over hundreds of times because they have maybe 3 moves in total they can hit you with, and every time you die, you'll moan and wonder if it's worth another 20 minutes of ammo dumping into such a boring, clearly rushed attempt at a boss fight. And Remnant 2's base game has some incredible bosses that are like insanely unique and well designed. So these basic enemies being reused as bosses really stand out for their poor fucking quality. And after completing maybe even a couple placeholder bosses, what do you think the DLC throws your way? The dual-wielding spear guy is a boss now! Wow! To be fair, he is more fun and developed than, say, the regular spear guy counterpart, but that also explains why the regular guy is so mid. They couldn't make him too exciting with his moveset of the boss version, because then they'd need to design a whole new fucking boss fight. And we've already seen previously that Gunfire doesn't like making new bosses. And what's sad is this boss is easily one of the best bosses you'll encounter so far, and probably a highlight of the entire DLC, but without anything to distinguish the guy visually, not even a black armor set, no red glowing eyes, you'll get the exact same feeling as when you saw the regular enemy. Uh-oh. Better dodge those spears. Now, I'm not really going to talk or show footage of the ending and the final boss of the DLC, but I will say that it is definitely something substantial, and if you push through the lackluster bosses at kind of placeholders before it, it is definitely going to be something you enjoy if you're a fan of Remnant bosses. The new class, the Ritualist, actually does add a fun new way to deal damage when compared to the other usual hunter-gunslinger approach. Rather than just pouring all your ammo into one enemy at a time, you'll most likely find yourself splitting your focus so as to apply status effects to every single enemy in the room before popping your skills, which ignites everybody affected by said status effects. The result is a satisfying wave of dead enemies all at once, being brought down at the same time if you manage to hit them all at least once. Couple this with maybe some summoning or crowd control classes as your subclass, and you get a very fun shakeup to the core gameplay loop. Another bonus to being a walking AoE damage radius of elemental death is disposing of enemies behind walls or even on another level of elevation, as your abilities trigger on everything in a large radius around you. I don't really think any other class in Remnant 2 can just pop their ability and see multiple enemies around the corner just light up in flames and poison, only to die on their way running to you. Is this class worth $10 alone? I don't know. Maybe if you really love Remnant, I would totally understand that. But since you also receive a new-ish map and a couple okay bosses, you don't have to worry about that too much. At the end of the day, it's important to remember that this DLC is only $10, 1/5 of the original price, so expecting an entire new world with more epic bosses not already seen earlier in the base game might be too much, and if that's what you're looking for, maybe wait and see if the next expansion offers up more new and original content. But if you already loved the original Remnant 2, and I mean if you really loved Remnant 2, then you will 100% enjoy this DLC. Maybe it's not my favorite of the now 4 existing levels, but it is certainly more content. And with 2 more DLCs to come, each with their potential of learning of what works and what doesn't from previous entries, the future of Remnant 2 is still looking bright. Thank you so much for watching Joystick Journal. Subscribe to join the hunt for the next big game, and leave a comment down below on what you'd like to see next. I've already got my eye on a few upcoming titles that I think will be bangers, but I'm curious to see what you're all excited for as well. GTA 6, anyone? Thanks again. I'll see you next week.
We can climb up hither and help our brethren from across the wall.
Hello.
Hello, brethren.
Hello.
You need help from across the wall?
I'm okay. No, I didn't mean to use that. I tried to put my hand back on the keyboard and put it in the wrong spot.
Is there a drawbridge or something?
Nope.
Oh, I know what this is. This is one of those invisible floors that you just gotta walk by on pure faith. leave it to me. I got this.